This is Let's Talk Teens, a parenting podcast sharing tips on raising amazing teenagers. We are both certified life coaches that have worked with teenagers as coaches, mentors, and teachers. We are sharing what we have found to work best when dealing with teens and tough issues.
This is Abbi and Cheree with Let's Talk Teens, episode 16, When Your Teen is Being a Beast.
So I have heard it from many a parent. They will say, my teenager, oh, they're just being a beast. They're so moody, right? Like the list can go on. And guess what? I think we've all experienced that teenage angst and upset. And it makes sense. We're like, yes. And as a society, if you think about the stereotype of teenagers, it usually is moody, mean, just angry, right? And so I wanted to talk about it on the podcast to shed some light to this, to hopefully help parents feel like you aren't alone and that your child isn't the only teenager in the whole world to really be prickly, to really be hard to be around. And one of the very first things that I want to tell every parent is you are not alone. Having your teen just be angry. Like literally, they'll wake up angry. They'll wake up angsty. They will wake up and grunt at you. Like you've made them breakfast and their lunch and they can't even be bothered to talk to you. I just want you to know that is so normal, right? And that you aren't alone. You haven't done something wrong. You're not a horrible parent. It is part of their brain development, right? This sassy, this general angst, like suddenly questioning you, like this is all part of the teenage experience. And when I encounter a teenager that is just in a mood, I say to myself, hey, this is like teenage behavior and it's okay. Nothing has gone wrong here, to borrow your phrase, Cheree, that this is part of the territory that comes with having a teenager.
Exactly. I think we forget that the teenage brain is having a major upgrade, and that's not always easy on them. I think about, okay, I have an iPhone, and every so often I get this notification that I'm going to get an upgrade to the system, right? And I wake up the next day and it's been upgraded, and I've got to figure out how to use some of the new things. And there's some things that have changed, and sometimes they're great changes and sometimes they're inconvenient changes, and it's just a learning process, but it's usually pretty fast. Well, our teens' brains are having constant major updates and upgrades. And they're having to try to figure out how to navigate life with all these updates and upgrades in their brain. And it's not easy and it's inconvenient. And they don't know how to think or feel about it. They've never done it before. They've never done this teenage life where your brain's constantly having this update and upgrade and learning how to adult. So, of course, they're going to be mad about it sometimes, right? Of course, sometimes it's just going to feel super uncomfortable. And so, the only way they know how to process it is to feel angry. And I just love that, you know, what you said, what I've said is, nothing's gone wrong. This is just absolutely normal. So normal.
I saw this really cool study that showed that during our teenage years, because our brain is changing and we have new emotions, new feelings, all these hormones, right? That we actually experience emotions more intensely than we will at any other point in our life. So your teen really isn't making it up when they're like, my life is over. Like, I am devastated. Like, they are feeling the highest highs and the lowest lows that our brain literally knows how to manage in their teenage years. Because when we go into adulthood, it's kind of like the ceiling on those emotions is lowered just a little bit so that we can stay in control. So I just want, every parent out there listening to go, okay, they're not broken. They're okay. Like, this is part of the territory. Now, what do you do,
That
right?
helps us. I think that just helps us have so much more patience with them when we understand this is normal. They're not broken. This is part of the process. I think as a parent, when we realize that, it just helps us be more patient and tolerant.
Now, what do you do, right? Because none of us want to hang out with the prickly pear beast, right? So, something I always tell parents too is allow your teen that freedom and space where you can, right? Like, just because our teen's going through all these different emotions doesn't mean that we have to be there right next to them and be like a punching bag or anything like that. So allow them to have freedom and have space where they can so that they can hang out with friends and practice being their best self. We tend to, as family members, get their rawest version of themselves. So allow them space, allow them freedom to feel those feelings, to try new things. This is all part of the teenage experience and it helps with their emotional regulation. But with that, we want to also make sure that we define boundaries and family rules. I think it's helpful when thinking about teenagers. I sometimes am asked, well, what's normal and what's not normal, right? Normal behavior is like being angsty, questioning their parents, wanting to not do family things, wanting to go against the plan, hating all their friends, only loving all their friends, pushing back on faith, religion, traditions, right? Actually really normal for a teen. Now, what's not normal and outside the realm that wants to put off a little red flag in your head would be like things like sneaking out, physical aggression towards siblings or other people, not being able to regulate feelings at all. So, like screaming until they're blue in the face. All these things can be markers that, oh, we need to have a family rule and a boundary because just because you're a teenager and just because your brain is developing and all these new things are happening doesn't mean I don't expect you to follow our family rules and to be a decent human being.
Yeah, so true. I love that. There's some things we don't need to fix, and there are some things we need to have boundaries for. And just really, really getting clear with that. What are some of our non-negotiables? Okay, we're going to set up some boundaries, and this isn't okay. And what are some of the things that we just need to give them space again to, and not try to fix it and let them feel angry and big and all of that.
Oh, like an example of that, I would say would be I really wish my teenage son would engage more with the family. He just wants to be alone in their room or just hanging out with friends. I say that's typical teenage behavior and we don't need to fix that. Now, yelling at siblings, being mean to them, that's where a family boundary steps in and saying, "Okay, nope, this is a family rule and there's going to be consequences," right? So that might help you kind of gauge, okay, what's the difference between, hey, I'm just going to kind of work with this teenager with what they're experiencing and then, oh, no, this has crossed a line.
Yeah, I'd love to add to that. When they have crossed a line, I like to say things like, it's okay you feel upset. It's okay you feel angry. What's not okay is for you to yell at your sister like that, or to punch the wall in, or to sneak out. It's okay to feel like we always want to validate and get permission and understanding that emotions are never bad or a weakness. Behaviors is where it becomes a problem that stem from our emotions and our feelings. We act based on how we feel, but it's saying, okay, you can feel mad, but this isn't the way we handle it. And so when you feel mad, it's okay to feel mad, but when you go punch your sister, this will happen. This will be your consequence. And I think that is setting that boundary.
Oh, Cheree, so perfect, right? And the last thing I want to offer parents that are really struggling, like, oh, my teenager is just so hard to love right now. Keep loving them and specifically keep doing what I call love actions. So, love actions are different for everybody, but it's how you like to show your love for your teenager or how they like to receive love. So, maybe my love action is that I make lunch for them every day, that they get to wake up and I've made their lunch. Maybe a love action is I leave them a little note, or maybe today I made their bed. And then I just give them a little side hug when they come in and say, "Hey, I saw your bed, and because I love you, I made it." Right? So we just
So
keep
good.
doing these actions that show our love for them, even when they feel so prickly.
I love that so much. And just in adding to it, I think it's the same thing with it's super easy when our teens are a beast to be hypercritical and to not, it's hard to see what they're doing right. It's so easy to be like, oh, they're doing this and they're doing this and they're doing this. But I think I read this once and it's really stuck with me. When my teen is being a beast or being hard, even if I compliment them in my head on their breathing, oh, they're sure doing a good job of breathing. And that sounds so funny, but our brain is going to hyper focus on how horrible they're being. And then it's going to be easy for us to kind of lose control and nitpick them. And then they're going to become more of a beast because we're constantly criticizing them. But if we can say to ourselves, okay, I need to focus on what they're doing right, even if it's their breathing, even if it's the fact that, you know what, they made it through 1 hour of school, or even if it's they didn't say anything rude through all of dinner. I want to take a mental note of that and, if possible, compliment them on that. But even if I compliment them in my head, it's going to help me not lose it on them and become the beast as well.
Yes, and it's a cycle, right? Like we would be lying if we didn't say it's not contagious, it's not a cycle. Um, so I love that, right? And the best part about like love actions and finding ways to compliment, love on your teen, you don't even need them to respond. You don't even
Exactly.
need them to love on you back. It's just I am choosing to love my child by filling in the blank, right? Whatever feels like love to you, right? So maybe I'm giving them a ride without complaining, or I'm shooting them a text or complimenting them, but just finding ways to keep us engaged in that love cycle of I am still looking for active ways to love and compliment and see the best in you.
Oh, I love that. So important. So, so important.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us today. We wish you the best of luck with your teenagers and their beastly behavior, and we hope that you join us next week. Thank you for listening to Let's Talk Teens with Cheree Murdock and Abbi Winslow. If you are looking for more tips to help your teenager, here's where you can find us. You can find Cheree Murdock on Instagram at Cheree Murdock Coaching or on her website, ChereeMurdock.com. You can find me, Abbi, on Instagram as Abbi Winslow or on my website, AbbiWinslow.com. Please rate and review our podcast and share with a fellow parent. Thanks for listening.